Good afternoon. I'm Kylie Gudenkoff with Kirkwood Corporate Training. I just want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for another great webinar. Today we have Brooke Fitzgerald with the Restoration Project presenting on the power of no, taking back your life and priorities. Just a quick reminder that today's presentation will conclude with a quick Q&A session. If you are using Zoom, please submit all of your questions via the chat or the Q&A feature. The easiest way to find these features is if you wiggle your mouse and you look at your toolbar. You'll typically see the toolbar for Zoom pop up at either the bottom or the top of your page, and then you can click on those icons and type your question. Today's session will be recorded, and you will all receive a link with that recording as soon as it is available on the Kirkwood Corporate Training YouTube channel. A little bit about our presenter today. As I previously mentioned, we have Brooke Fitzgerald. She's the energy builder at the Restoration Project. Brooke encourages and empowers individuals, leaders, and teams through question and reflection to understand themselves and to honor, and to honor each other to restore the human experience. Brooke has over 20 years of experience, including roles in management and sales for large corporate organizations. She owned her own coffee shop for 8.5 years, and as well as worked in commercial real estate sales. Brooke holds a BA in business management, has served on numerous nonprofit boards of directors, volunteers frequently, and resides in Cedar Rapids. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Andy, and their 2 boys, Connor and Henry, as well as golfing, biking, gardening, and just being outdoors in general. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brooke. We're glad to have you present on this topic, and the floor is yours whenever you'd like to get started.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kylie, and a big thank you to the Kirkwood Corporate Training Program for asking me to present on this topic today, the power of no, which is a very passionate topic of mine, one that I struggled a lot with several years ago and kind of started down the path of retraining my mindset and retraining my default to no versus yes. So anxious to dive right in today. So thank you very much for joining. Today, on this topic of the power of no, some things that we're going to dive into here are being able to get clear on setting appropriate boundaries for yourself, being able to set crystal clear priorities for yourself, gaining more time and energy for the things that you want and that you desire, and to create life balance and a positive energy flow. We often find ourselves saying yes to things that we really don't want to. We say yes to projects, to people, to pressure, and then panic. No time, no energy, no balance, and no control. No, a small word that packs a lot of power. In fact, it is the most powerful word in the English language. Just ask any 3-year-old. It is an awesome superpower, and as children, we treasure this weapon along with an amazing concert of temper tantrums to go along with it. Eventually, however, it becomes very apparent that society does not look kindly upon this as a default behavior. What was once cool at 3 eventually carries with it an invisible force that can make it feel harsh, overbearing, and heavy-handed into our early teenage and adult years. We are taught early on in our childhood that both saying and hearing no is a negative thing, that it hurts those around us and causes us to lose out on new and exciting opportunities. Eventually, most of us run out of energy and just start saying yes because it's easier in many ways. We spend so much time saying yes to things that it becomes a habit. Our default becomes yes rather than no. And it's no wonder that so many of us have a complex with juggling too much on our plates, not being able to decipher what is a priority in our life. So why don't we do it? We tend to, as a society, put others' objectives above our own. Our inability to say no, again, stems from our childhood, where we learn to associate no with a feeling of rejection and denial. As we grow older into our teenage and adult years, we've now conditioned ourselves to hustle for our worthiness, approval, not wanting to ruffle feathers, and the feelings of a need to please. So we say yes all of the time. Disregarding ourselves seems like the unselfish thing to do. Another association with childhood, hearing, don't be selfish. However, in reality, when we say yes to things that we don't want to, it builds negative feelings almost immediately following, such as resentment, guilt, and annoyance. And those are feelings that don't benefit anyone, especially you. When you say no, you're not causing another person pain, creating hostility, or even insulting someone. You are simply exercising your right to say no. It is a right, not a privilege. No should be viewed as a form of freedom and liberation. When I say no to something, it allows me to say yes to something else. Oftentimes, something that aligns with my core values and my priorities and allows me to be my true self. Let's dive into a couple of areas in which we can make changes or adjustments to our mindset and thinking to allow ourselves the ability to determine when we say yes and when we say no. Let's begin with the act of setting appropriate boundaries. Setting appropriate boundaries means knowing and understanding what your limits are. Maya Angelou once said, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others. How are you setting boundaries in your own life so you're able to help yourself? Ironically, if you don't help yourself, you won't have the capacity to be able to help others. I'm sure you've probably heard this saying before. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. I'm going to say that one more time. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. State your basic rights and believe in them in order to honor yourself. If you honor yourself, you will then be able to give grace and honor others. Some examples of basic rights from Judith Belmont, a mental health author, are: I have a right to say no without feeling guilty. I have a right to be treated with respect. I have a right to make my needs as important as others. I have a right to be accepting of my mistakes and failures. I have a right not to meet others' unreasonable expectations of me. We say yes oftentimes to gain affirmation, acceptance, and approval. We want to run away from the feelings of shame, vulnerability, and guilt, which in reality is undermining our own power, integrity, and depletes our own energy. 4 questions that I want you to ask yourself before saying yes to something. And they're on the screen here. 1, do I truly want to do this? Is it a hell yeah, I want to do this? 2, what do I personally gain out of doing this task, attending this event? Is this aligning with my priorities that I have set for myself? Number 3, what has this person done for me lately? Are they coming to you because you always say yes? I like to think about this as a two-way street. I ask you to do something, I ask you to go to an event with me, and likewise, you do the same with me. You ask me to do a task, you ask me to attend an event. This is not a one-way street. So ask yourself, what has this person done for me lately? Are they coming to me because they know that I'm going to say yes? And lastly, what else will I do with my time if I don't do this? Will I have opportunities for self-care, for rest, for time with family, with friends, and things that I truly enjoy doing? In order to ask yourself these questions, you need to allow time and space to truly ask and reflect upon them. So when asked, can you take on this meeting agenda for tomorrow morning? You can respond with, I'll get back to you in an hour and let you know. Take it upon yourself to spend several minutes asking yourself these questions and listening to how your initial gut responds. No is a complete sentence. No does not require an explanation. No is not followed up by an excuse. However, if you have difficulty at first in just saying no, which I did for a very long time, still struggle with it, I have to remind myself using some of these alternatives. I choose not to. Not at this time. Unfortunately, that will not work for me. I'm unable to help you on this. However, so-and-so might be able to. Spend some time developing your own boundaries and discovering what your limits are. This requires being still and listening to your needs. This was and continues to be the lesson that has taken me the longest to learn. Learning to say no and being okay with it, creating boundaries for myself. And that comes from having a true sense of self-worth and self-value. That you are good enough, you are worthy enough to establish boundaries for yourself that you don't allow other people to cross. The second area of focus when it comes to the power of no is getting crystal clear on your priorities. Do you struggle to get things done because everything feels important? There's not enough time in the day to do it all, right? If you silently said yes in your head, you probably don't have a clear idea of what your priorities are. A priority is the concern, interest, or desire that comes before all others. Our priorities are the areas of our lives that are meaningful and important to us. They're usually activities, practices, and relationships that we want to put genuine effort and time into. Ask yourself these 3 questions. What do I want? Why do I want it? And how will I achieve it? The what and the why will change over time, and obviously the goals within which you set to achieve them. Goals are the bigger picture of achievement. For example, I want to compete in a triathlon. Priorities are the things that you need to say yes and no to in order to reach that goal. If everything is a priority, then nothing is. Your decisions on what you say yes and what you say no to are incredibly easier if you have your priorities in order. Some additional questions to ask yourself. What are my highest value activities? Take a look at your calendar. Be honest with yourself. Are you spending the majority of your time on highest value activities? What is this yes costing me? When you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Does this align with my priorities? Setting non-negotiables, which I'll go into a little bit further here in a minute. But do you have non-negotiables? Are you able to ask yourself, does this align with my priorities? Or is it a non-negotiable? As we wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. There is a reason I've left it for last, because it is the most important. Many of my clients say to me, I need help with focusing. I need help to get more time in my day. I need help with reaching my goals. I need you to coach me on how to say no. You want to know the truth of the matter? You already know how to say no. You've been saying no to yourself for a long time. You've been saying no to your goals, to your family, to your self-care, your rest, your gratitude, and your positive energy. You've been on a treadmill, burning precious life fuel and not going anywhere. Your focus and consequently your energy tied to that have been on the things that you don't want to do. Do you ever notice how some people just seem to float above all the noise? They appear to always be doing what they want to do, almost untouchable. After taking myself out of the deepest rabbit hole I'd ever been down in a few years ago and learning the power of no and being okay with putting myself and my needs first, I figured out the secret. It's not voodoo magic. It's learning how to say no effectively. No is the default setting. Shifting your mindset, establishing boundaries, and setting crystal clear priorities for yourself will enable you to reach the point of feeling good about saying yes. It will be a hell yes, because if it's not, then it's a no, period. My last piece of advice is this. If you walk away from this session today with nothing else, hear this. Never neglect yourself. Look after you. You can't lead or perform if you can't operate. You, your family, your team need you to function. Be aware of your thoughts and your energy. What you focus on expands. One of my favorites, the late Wayne Dyer, once said, "As you think, so shall you be, and you can't give away what you don't have." If your thoughts and your energy and what you have inside is negative, filled with guilt, shame, hustle, coming from a place of lack and limitation, then that's what you have to give away. And that's what will come back to you. Versus if what you have in here is positive, full of love and gratitude and abundance, that's what you're going to have to give away. I want to take a couple of seconds here to walk through an exercise, what I call, what does it look like once your eyes awake? And I want you to close your eyes for a minute and just think to yourself, when you wake up each morning, what is the first thoughts that come into your mind? What are the first things that you do after your feet hit the ground? I'm going to challenge those of you that thoughts that immediately start flooding into your mind that are negative and filled with the things that you have to do today, filled with the minute your feet hit the ground, you're checking your phone, you're checking your email, your text messages, going on social media, you're going to get breakfast, you're jumping in the shower, you're attending to kids, that you consciously take 2, 3, or 4 minutes of time to lay in bed with your eyes closed and prepare yourself for the day. Positively setting yourself up for success, having affirmations and intentions and gratitude so that you can take on your day appropriately versus walking straight into chaos. Some examples of a morning routine. After your eyes awake and you've done that exercise, a couple of affirmations, some examples that I'd like to give that work well are: I will not compromise my integrity to please others. I will not apologize for saying no. I will ask directly for what I need. I will be truthful and authentic. I have more choices, including no. Yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that does not change the truth that I am brave and worthy of love and belonging. And no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. I have enough. I am worthy. Some intentions. I intend to listen and be grateful. I intend to lead by example. I intend to forgive others and myself. I intend to love myself unconditionally. I like to refer to intentions as the universal law of attraction. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Keep always on your mind, what is my intention for doing this? Because behind intention is motivation. Setting non-negotiables. An example of one that to this day I still use. Several years ago, when I was in this deep rabbit hole of hustling for worthiness and acceptance and approval and saying yes to everything and saying no to myself, I worked a lot of Sundays. I emailed on Sundays, I did billing on Sundays, invoicing on Sundays, all of these things. And I set a non-negotiable for myself that I would no longer work on Sunday, period. And to this day, Sunday is reserved for the things that I want to do. Spending time with my friends, with my family, maybe just laying on the couch, watching movies, doing nothing, honoring my time for rest if I feel like I need it. But Sunday is my day. There is no work that happens on Sunday. So have a couple of non-negotiables in your life that you hold yourself accountable to. Delegate. As parents, we do not do this enough with our children. Learn how to delegate tasks that truly you do not need to be doing. And honor your need for rest. It is not about the intensity of what we're talking about here. It is about consistency. The little things matter. It is not just enough to be positive-minded. It's operating from a place of action. As Tony Robbins once said, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten. In closing, my hope for you is that you put yourself and your self-care a priority going forward, that you are empowered to say no, set boundaries, and clear priorities for your health and well-being. I wish nothing but success and abundance for all of you always. And don't hesitate to reach out to me with questions or if I can help you in any way. My contact information is there. I'd like to thank Kylie and the Kirkwood Corporate Training Program once more for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you all today. I think before I toss it over to Kylie into questions, I did want to highlight the next Kirkwood free webinar, which is coming up on October 1st with my partner and creator of the Restoration Project, Lindsay Leahy, and I've got that up on my screen right now. So Thursday, October 1st at 1 p.m. again, and that one is going to be entitled Creating Power. So I'll toss it back over to you, Kylie, for questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's a really great topic. I know that I can think of almost every person in my life that at times are guilty of this, as well as myself, of not saying no enough. I love the quote, just because you can doesn't mean you should. For those of you who are still with us, we are going to do questions and answers right now. We love your feedback, so thank you for the excellent that we got. But at this time, if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat bar. Otherwise, I can ask a couple questions for the group. And just a quick reminder, we will have a recording of today's session, and we will be sharing that out. So we are getting some questions, so we'll start with those, Brooke. The first question is how do you suggest to handle saying no in the workplace?
Yeah, so this is a tough one because all of us struggle with this, both personally and professionally. And in the workplace, it works the same way, setting priorities for yourself. And a lot of times, working with clients, especially in this space, our list of priorities of things that we want to have accomplished during a day are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things long, which is completely unrealistic and completely setting ourselves up for failure. And so we get down a rabbit hole of saying yes to all these things because we feel like we're not accomplishing anything. So we need to say yes to feel acceptance and approval and affirmation and like we're doing a good job and we're contributing and we're worth everything that we're showing up to work for our boss or our team. And the truth is we've set ourselves up for failure from the get-go. So taking a look at your calendar, and I think that one question that I ask, what are your highest value activities? That's specifically for that professional space, and looking at your calendar each week and really concentrating on what your activities are and focusing on the highest value ones.
Great. I love that little myth busting there as part of that answer of the self value lying in yes, when that's simply not true.
Mm-hmm.
We have another,
By the way,
yeah.
having it go cold on us. So
We have another really great question of how do you handle pushback from others when you are saying no to something?
yeah, I will tell you, the first several times that you say no, period, they're going to be tough, and especially for those that are coming to you because they know that you're going to say yes because you've said yes always. And so you just have to stand your ground. And people that want you to succeed and that love you and know your worth will not be upset with you. The ones that are upset with you are upset because you're not helping them take things off of their own plate. Their own accountability needs to be checked. And so standing your ground and knowing that you are worth everything that you say yes to, and being clear on your priorities and your objectives. It's tough. It's tough at first. This is a simple thing, but it is not easy. So give yourself some grace and space to learn and grow through it, because you're gonna stumble, and you're gonna you're gonna say yes to something you really don't want to, and then you're like, gosh, dang it, I did it again. But just take the time and the space to really analyze whether or not you want to say yes or no to something.
Yeah, and I know you talked about this in the webinar, and I know we touched base on it with our practice run prior to today's webinar, that I think is really meaningful was practice, practice, practice. And I love that you mentioned the give yourself grace again. And don't be, one of the things that you were telling us previously was don't be afraid to kind of review past decisions and how you could have set clearer boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's so lovely when you just give yourself that permission, like you said, to practice, give yourself grace, and recognize when you could have set clearer boundaries.
Right.
Love it. This is another really great question. How do you shut down the guilty feelings in yourself when you say no?
Yeah. Guilt is a byproduct of our ego. And I could do a whole webinar just on ego, honestly. When guilt is a feeling and emotion that is strong and comes up often throughout your day, that is your soul really wishing that you could just smack your ego in the face and say, look, I'm worthy. I'm enough just how I am and who I am. And I believe that. So you, ego, can go fly a kite. You and your guilt can go like down the highway, go to the next rest stop. And I say this tongue in cheek because I struggled with that for a very, very long time. An exercise that I did, and this was several times a day, when you feel those feelings creeping up, I like to just call it like it's creeping up your shoulder, you can feel it. You say out loud to yourself, Brooke, I am safe. I am secure. I am worthy. I am enough. And you know what, ego? Later, Graham. Like, I don't need to feel guilty for being who I am and doing what I'm doing. Just having that conversation, and until you feel like that emotion has subsided, and that too takes practice. Those feelings are gonna creep up for a good while, until you get into that right space where your soul is really thriving and your ego is at bay. It can have a chokehold on you, though. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. We have another question here. How can you help other people understand that others may say no to them? They gave a specific example of they hear a lot of no from others in regards to overtime or changing jobs. and helping people understand the expectations are still there to make it happen?
I'm guessing this is from a leadership perspective.
I believe so.
Yeah, managing people. This gets tricky. It does come back to, I've got a client right now that we're working through this similar scenario, and doing check-ins where we're asking the employees or the team to come with their priorities. What activities are they doing, and what priorities do they have, and how do they go about achieving those priorities and being crystal clear with them? A lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as leaders to have the answers and to be in control. And people really want to be accountable for themselves. And so empowering people to be held accountable for themselves. And I just go through that prioritization activity with them in their check-ins.
Very good. Any tips for delegating, especially if the person you're delegating to also says no?
Yes. One thing to keep in mind, in general, as a society, again, we say yes to everything. And so creating this mindset shift takes patience and giving yourself a lot of space. Delegating, it comes back to accountability as well. I like to think of, as parents or as leaders of teams, oftentimes we tell ourselves, well, yeah, I've delegated that, but they did it wrong, or they didn't do it how they were supposed to, or, those answers usually come back to us. And so looking in the mirror and saying, what part of that situation or scenario could I have helped in empowering them to do it differently the next time? And empowering them to create and have creative solutions and be part of the solution and the conversation. Communication. I mean, it has to be a two-way communication, and making up stories, within ourselves on both sides of the table, a lot of times creates kind of that feeling of not wanting to delegate in the future.
Perfect. Thank you. So guys, this is going to be our last question we're going to take today to be respectful of everybody's time. Our last question is, I've had people label others as not being a team player when they say no. How do you recommend we counteract this?
Yeah. It comes back to accountability again. All of it comes back to ego and accountability. We tend to shift blame and guilt and vulnerability onto others when our ego has us in a chokehold. So oftentimes it's one of those having that conversation and being extremely vulnerable within your own self to have the conversation. Because if we don't have these conversations and we don't lay down those feelings, then it's just going to build animosity, annoyance, resentment. It's just going to build and build and build. And the ego loves to feed on all of those emotions. So we have to get really strong and have the conversation that says, look, I'm going to be really vulnerable here, that these are the feelings that I'm having, and let's have a conversation about how we can work together.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for all of those that attended today's session. It's great when we have such a great audience and with such great questions for Brooke. As Brooke mentioned, we have an upcoming webinar with her partner, Lindsay Leahy, at the Restoration Project. It's on creating power, and that is on October 1 at 1 p.m. as well. Thank you, everyone, and I will have this recording out too as soon as possible. And again, Brooke, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much for your time.